Hello, ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to the SRA GTE-Radical series of 2020. Round 1 here at the full course at Road Atlanta. We're in Basildon, Georgia for what is going to be a fantastic race with the GTE cars and the Radical. So far, Soul Radical has entered into the race. Hopefully we'll see a few more coming in. My name is Matthew Palmer and we'll be joined very shortly by Chan Wei Han as well. And this fantastic 4-kilometer long circuit is going to prove to be a very exciting racetrack to be on. 23 degrees Celsius is the weather and that looks like it's going to be very, very good indeed. We're going to have a look at Kelvin Singh. Kelvin Singh, one of the drivers in the AIMC Championship, making the move back over to the SimRacing Asia series. We've had a series earlier on in the year. This is sort of the fall series, if you will, or the autumn series. And it looks like we've got quite a few drivers out there, 25 and counting, out there on track. So far, Yuan Shilin is the fastest man out on track in the Radical SRA, but Mitchell Hui and Ilham Habi are not that far behind. Having said that though, just noticed that Lin has done a 115.1, whilst Mitchell Hui has done a 116.8, so it looks like the Radical might have the upper hand through the course of the race. Now the Radicals, just to clarify, won't be scoring points in this series, but it does add a little bit to that endurance racing flair to have them along as well. But one thing for sure, the GTE guys are going to be raring to try and get back that position. Now we're going to head off into the qualifying session. 15 minutes to go, and it looks to be a open qualifying session. With me right now, he's just managed to get back home in time, Chan Wei Han.
Wonderful. Hi everyone. So glad to begin the second SimRacers Asia season of the year. Of course, we're going to race, as you just said, Max, we're going to race GTE cars as well as a non-point scoring Radical class, which is currently seem to be occupied by one driver at this point. So I'm still loading into the session. I think there are just under 30 drivers who have logged into this session, and I'm just so excited for the race tonight.
Absolutely, and isn't this a fantastic track to be on? The location of the Petit Le Mans race, which is vital for a lot of American teams trying to get into the Le Mans 24-hour race. Of course, there's a system of qualification to get into the Le Mans 24-hour race, and this track here in Basildon is one of the tracks that's key in getting that qualification in and getting that invite to Le Mans. So the legendary Petit Le Mans race, 10 hours around this fantastic flowing track.
Yeah, so it's also worth noticing that, a little unlike the Le Mans circuit that we're used to seeing with endurance racing cars, we do find that this track, it's actually kind of short. It's one of those shorter tracks that we have on the iRacing service. And to the drivers, when you have so many corners kind of compacted together in one section, it will feel like kind of like a rinse and repeat track. Where drivers have to, it's all about 1 minute lap times, and it's all about drivers going over and over again trying to get the lines right each time.
Absolutely, perfection is the key. You get so many laps around here during the course of a long race. We're going to have a 40-minute race session, I believe, and but you can imagine trying to drive around here for 10 hours, barely any break. So we're on board with Lachlan Crowe right now, car number 420. June Simon Sanchez, Stephen Brocade and Paul Rogers are the first few cars that are going to go across the lines. Speaking to my more educated half, Chan Wei Han has been involved with the SRA community for quite a while now, and he'd perhaps be the best man to try and pick out the favourites so far.
Well, at the same time, I think we've got many fast drivers as well from the sim racing enthusiast community. We've got guys like Jaiswin Jali, and we've got couple more other drivers. I think Lloyd Lachlan as well. He's with us racing today. I think these are also some of the favorites drivers. But of course, we've also got people like Kevin Huang. We also got Ilham himself. We've got a couple of other drivers, here and there that will give these guys a run for their money. We've also got some of our friends from Australia as well. We've raced with them since the beginning of SimRacing Asia as well. These guys, we've got some guys like Daniel Lead, a good friend of mine, as well as his teammate Lachlan Crow, who are racing with us here tonight.
Absolutely, a very wide and varied series this has turned out to be. And also a good shout out to all the guys from the Macau and Hong Kong Sim Racers Association as a great source of many of the fastest and most experienced drivers in this series. So this really is a celebration of sim racing all throughout Asia, and what a set of cars to be doing them in. The fantastic BMW M8, great sounding car. The Corvette looking nice and fairly pretty. It's a pity we didn't see the Corvette at Le Mans this year, but I'm sure the Corvette team will be raring to go out there. Of course, the classic Porsches, like Young's car here. And also that lone Radical looks to be quite quick with the Chinese driver Lin on board.
Do apologize. So we are kind of 5 minutes into the qualifying session, so we have opted for an open qualifying layout this season. This is so that drivers will get the opportunity to kind of make use of one another's slipstream as they try to go on the hot laps. And it just kind of adds another layer of challenge where, instead of requiring drivers to set a fastest lap time within 2 laps, they have more laps to be able to put in their lap times.
Absolutely, we see there Ilham Halabi heading into the pits just to perhaps cool down and try and go for it later on in the session. 5 minutes have gone, and so far Mitchell Hui is the fastest car out on track, 116.5. That was very close to the quickest times we've seen in practice. You're going to see the GTE cars get into the mid to low 116s, but we know the Radical can get into the 115s. If it pushes quite far. It looks like this track might be one that suits the Radical more than the GTE cars.
So of course, with regards to required pit stops, the GTEs will, I believe, one of the classes will have fuel limits. So you would expect there to be some overtaking taking place between the classes. But of course, these two classes, they're not fighting with each other. So we'll just have to see how it all turns out.
Absolutely. But in any case, the great part is you get that real enduro feel with prototypes and GT cars out there on track. I can't wait for the round in Le Mans. And there's quite a few other fantastic rounds coming up throughout the course of the series, isn't there? So you see that's Pang Chut Fun getting in to the 121s. Quite a few drivers out there still pushing hard to try and get some temperature into the tyres with these big GT cars. Sometimes it's best to try and take maybe an extra warm-up lap to try and spot yourself in the traffic, because on an open qualifying session, especially at a short track like this, traffic can be an issue. You can either try and work with it, or you might get bogged down with it. So that's what a lot of these drivers will be trying to do there. But it looks like the times are beginning to come in thick and fast.
So of course, if we do have a look at the qualifying lap times, Mitchell Wee leads provisionally the grid with 116.561, and we've also got Saiful Arifin and Kevin Huang not far behind at all. They're all within 2-3 tenths of a second. So you can see that most of the drivers are within 2 seconds of one another, which is very, very compact indeed, all the way down to the 18th and 19th driver. And of course, beyond that, we've also got other drivers who have yet to set their qualifying lap times, and they will be doing so over the next couple of moments.
Absolutely, and it looks like it's going to be a real interesting challenge to try and get this lap right. It looks like a lot of the cars are going a bit wide on the exit of the S's there, coming up to the top 2 corners here. and it looks like the S's seem to be the hardest part of the circuit when it comes to trying to drive through it as quickly as possible. But those two corners at the far side of the circuit look like the best overtaking opportunities, as well as this run up into turn 1 and the back straight.
So you're just riding on board a couple of cars, and you can just kind of, if you do observe the laps that these cars take, it's kind of like a phase, where you have the first sector of the track is all the tricky corners, blind corners, in fact, being bundled up together, and then you have the second corner with the two right-handers and this long backstretch, and you have this final section where it's all about trying to get the best entry, especially down into this downhill right-hander. You want to try to position your car at the right position in order to get the best run down and out of this final corner. This is, potentially where some of the most exciting overtaking moves can take place. And down into first corner, it's very, very easy to kind of lose the apex and find yourself set, being dragged into the exit if you're not careful with the line. And exactly this one mistake where it probably followed the car in front of him. He's unfortunately made the shortcut through the S's.
Yeah, it's a real tricky track to try and get right. That's Stefan Yves, I believe, in the, looks like the Porsche there. Heading down into the first corner here. The real tricky part here is that, of course, this is a natural terrain circuit, so this wasn't designed by Herman Tilke to be nice with constant radius corners. This is just about as close to a real road as you can get on a modern racing circuit. So these S's here, it's super critical to know when to turn in, because you cannot see the apex until you're committed to it. And coming up to the exit here as well, very tricky to try and keep the car within the two yellow lines there. A lot of drivers you will see actually take that excess road on the exit to try and maximize the speed coming up to these top two corners here. And you'll notice these corners are actually banked slightly, so some of the drivers who perhaps get their aero down just about right and the aero balance will be able to take those corners quite quick, comparison to someone who's struggling with understeer or oversteer in aerodynamic terms. Now down the back straight here, again, it's a fantastic place to try some slipstreaming maneuvers if you can, and a very heavy braking zone here, so you could see some interesting moves, just like we see there coming into the chicane. All right. So anyways, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, in fact, we're now with Ilham, and we can see him coming around for a qualifying lap. He's just nailed down a 1:17.250, and that puts him at 10th. But of course, in practice, he did set a marginally faster lap time of 1:16.9. So I think he would potentially gain a couple more positions if he is able to nail that lap time down. We'll just have to see about that. We're now with Federico Teixeira. He's in his if I can just go to his car, he is in his BMW, very nicely presented Macau paint scheme. It's coming around the final corner, so I can just see someone in front there made a little bit of mistake, that Corvette. And that just goes to show how easy it is to kind of lose your handle on the final corner. He comes around, and he would have set a lap time of 1:17.81, which kind of puts him at 16th position. We're now with Kelvinder Singh, and of course he's also one of the faster drivers that we've seen with all the racing that we've kind of observed these guys do over the past couple of months. And he's also going to come around the final corner and see if he's able to best his previous lap time. So his time to beat 1:16.848, if he's able to beat that, which he does unfortunately not, he still retains 5th position.
Absolutely. Let's have a look at Saiful Erfin coming across the line there. Let's see what he has been able to do. And it looks like he has been able to better his 1:16.652, but that still keeps him in 4th position, looking very pretty at the start of the race. Now it's a fairly long race, so you probably won't see the drivers pushing as hard as humanly possible to try and get that pole position, because there is a chance to try and overtake around this fantastic flowing circuit here. But it looks to be that in the battle for pole position, Kemet Huang is in the lead with 1:16.463. But a tenth of a second behind is Mitchell Hui, who's on his outlap, and Pariwat Chukan is in third place with a 116.566. So very, very close indeed. The top 3, top 4 in fact, are very close together, and it looks like it's going to be a nice little battle heading into the last few minutes.
So of course we're coming to the final moments of qualifying, and right now this is Aguri Yong or just unfortunately I'm not able to tell who this driver is. He's going to come, this is Yong, he's coming across the final corner, he's going to set a lap time. His previous lap time was 1:19.039, so unfortunately he does not best his lap time, he still comes around with a 1:19.740, so he retains his 22nd position. So there's still time for some of the drivers to perhaps insert 1 or even 2 more laps into their qualifying stint, and unfortunately this is Lloyd Lucklin, who has gone around in the middle of the chicane. Not exactly one of the places that you want to kind of get your car tangled up, as you know, it is right smack in the middle of fast flowing traffic. This is Dominic Tan. Of course, he's one of the guys in the local Singapore community as well. Very fast driver himself as well. He's currently got a 1:18.040 in his BMW M8. He's going to come across the start-finish line with a lap time of... would appear that he did not set a valid lap time, and he still retains 17th.
Absolutely, and isn't it interesting to see these guys being so close to each other around such a technical lap? It's absolutely fantastic stuff to watch, and it does go to show that this might be one very exciting race indeed. The top 18 there, the top 22 drivers are within a couple of seconds of each other there, so that just goes to show how tight everything is going to be basically throughout the field. So this is going to be a very exciting race indeed as we come across the final few seconds of qualifying.
So what's going to happen later on is that drivers will be unceremoniously lifted from the track once the timing comes to a close. But of course there is a 2-minute grace period for some of the guys to continue with their closing laps. So we are with Ryan Lam in his Corvette. Unfortunately, trading paints isn't working on my end, but I can still see the paints from the other feed that I've got. He's going to brake hard down into the final chicane, and his lap time to beat is 1:17.250 if he wants to advance yet another position into the top 10. He comes down the downhill, very tricky right-hander, gets an apex right, gets the exit extremely well, and unfortunately does not best his lap time, so he still holds on to 11th.
Definitely seemed like the quicker times were coming earlier in the session. Perhaps a little bit of traffic there that might have hindered a few of the drivers out there. But pretty soon we're going to head up to the grid, and it looks like there's just Sanchez left out on the track to try and see if he can get around the lap before time runs out. It looks like he might not be able to do so. He's on an outlap in fact, so he won't be able to make it, I believe. But so far it's Kevin Huang who is on pole position, followed by Michel Hui and Parawat Chukan. That is your top 3, followed by Saiful Arifin and Kelvinder Singh, with Simon Sanchez, Jaswin Jali, Atsushi Tanaka and Kunaron in 9th place, with Ilham Halabi in 10th.
So the other drivers, we have Ryan Lam, Paul Rogers, Lachlan Crowe, Stephen Buckade, Timothy Jackson, great to see these guys racing with us, Daniel Lead as well, Federico Teixeira, Dominic Tan, Surin Selvaraju and Fred Ting rounding up your top 20.
Absolutely, you can see some quick guys further down there. Lloyd Lachlan and Chok Fun Pang, 2 drivers that have been competing in the AMC Championship earlier in the year. They'll be exciting to watch there. And Stefan Eva as well, with quite a few very, very exciting drivers up there. But Kevin Huan for Eurasia Sim Sports is on pole position. Michel Hui in 2nd place, Parawat Chukan in 3rd place. Saiful Arifin for Sim Garage is in 4th, followed by Kelvinder Singh, Simon Sanchez and Jaswin Jali.
And the other drivers will also have Atsushi Kanata as well as Cassilis Tunkunanon in 9th, and Ilham Halabi will round out your top 10th. Ryan Lam and Paul Rogers take up 11th and 12th position. We've got the other guys, Lachlan Crowe, Stephen Buckade, Timothy Jackson, from Evolution Racing Team, Daniel Lead in 16th, Federico Teixeira in 17th, Dominic Tan in 18th, Surin Salvaraggio in 19th, and Fred Ting in 20th.
Absolutely, a very exciting field of drivers coming out now. We're just waiting on a few drivers to grid up before we head off into the warm-up lap. I believe this is a rolling start, if I'm not mistaken. So the drivers will be behind the official iRacing Porsche 911. I still see that they've kept the roll cage in the car, as is tradition. The lights will go on, and when it goes off, it's going to be a parade lap around the circuit.
So as the cars set off, and as the race director, or rather the race admin, offers his welcome remarks to the drivers, briefing in a way. This is the Porsche leading the grid through the field. Kevin Huang, of course, in his nicely decked out Eurasia Sim Sport for GT, he leads the very, very nicely presented 488 as well of Mitchell Wee. So these guys, they will lead the field into the race start.
Absolutely, and it's a fantastic set of cars out there right now. Just having a look at the stream, the cars are decked out really nicely, fantastic liveries all up and down the field, and it really does look to be a very, very colourful race indeed.
So you've got some good scenic shots as well of this Road Atlanta circuit. Of course, you get a good, extremely good view of the S's coming down. It's always a beautiful shot of cars thundering their way down those S's. Very, very nice to see. Of course, this is a shoot after the exit from exit out of the S's. This is a high-speed run, and then a breakdown. This right-hander that is slightly banked, which means that you're able to carry some speed across, and this trickier right-hander, which is a little bit off camber, and this is where you have to get your exit right and not kind of overcook your car around the corner as you prepare for a long run down the backstretch.
Absolutely, and at this time the drivers are beginning to get just a little bit restless. They're worried about whether they've got enough heat in the tires. You can see Kelvin Dissing weaving around just to try and get some heat in the tires. Some of the other drivers following suit. The nerves are beginning to build up. They're trying to plot their strategies when it comes to taking the race start. Kelvin Huang is still there on pole position. He wants to keep that going through the first corner. It's critical. It's going to be a lot harder for the drivers to try and overtake that way through the S's. So that's going to be Kevin's main concern going through the start. He perhaps think about whether he should drop the field and try and accelerate as early as possible, or hold them back just a little bit. But he'll be aware of what happened to Valtteri Bottas during the Formula 1 race at Mugello. So as they come down through the field there, it's going to be the final corner. The lights are on, the green flag waves, and we are go! Kevin Huang is going to go side by side with Mitchell Hui, but it looks like Kevin gets into the lead there, but Mitchell is hanging on. He's trying hard. They're touching. The cars have contact and they go over the crest, and it looks like one of the cars there has gone off the track. That looks to be Mitchell Hui. That's an absolutely unfortunate event coming out of the first corner there, but now it looks like Chupan has managed to capitalize from the incident, and he's off into the lead, and he is flying through the S's there. So now Kevin Huang has to try and keep himself as far up the field as possible. There's another car off the track as well at the exit there of the S's.
So what's otherwise a reasonable start for most of the drivers. Of course, we have some guys who have unfortunately lost some positions along the way as the race start opened itself. So right now we do have Pariwat Chukan as the race leader, with Kevin Huang pushed down to second positions. So Kelvin Singh follows extremely closely behind as well, and of course this is good. This is already at this point the battling is already taking place between Huang and Kelvin Singh for second place. We've also got Saiful Arifin, who is very much keen to join in this party.
Absolutely, the Malaysian is definitely having a strong showing at this round of the SRA series race. But look at Pariwat there, he's really got himself into a nice lead, 1.1 seconds at this early stage in the race, especially around a track like this where it's really hard to get a large gap. That really goes to show he's pushing that big BM as hard as he can to try and pull away. But could that be hurting the tyres? Could that be affecting the strategy? We'll have to find out. Meanwhile, Federico Teixeira is getting very, very close behind the Porsche of Daniel Lee. Could we see an overtaking maneuver coming in? He goes for a look, but he decides not to go for it. Perhaps deciding that discretion is the better part of valor, but they're still going to push as hard as possible. You can almost read the serial number of the rear bumper on that Porsche as they exit the corner there. Could this be a nice slipstreaming opportunity for Federico coming into the crest here? They're going to go side by side. Will this be an opportunity going through this flat out right hand kink? Federico Teixeira will be set up around the outside. It's going to be an out-braking maneuver, and it looks like he has managed to get past the Porsche just before the entry to the chicanes.
And this is going to be Ryan Lam and Kanata going side by side. They just went down side by side down the downhill right-hander, and they are now weaving their way in and out of as they go through the main stretch. So a couple of cars clustered around as well, and right now this is Lam who sits in 7th, and he's got kind of a bit of a wiggle room between kind of in front and behind of him. So right now he's having his sights set on closing the gap with Ilham Halabi in front.
Indeed, Ryan Lam and Ilham Halabi very close together, but it looks like the Thai driver Kunaran also has made a move on Kanata. Perhaps Atsushi Kanata is trying to maintain his pace and not worry too much about the positions this early on in the race. And that could come to his advantage later on. This race is just about long enough where he can start thinking of tactics and strategy and when to push and when to hold back. Just like the old song goes, you're going to know when to hold them and when to fold them.
Yeah, most certainly. This is him committing down the inside, trying to commit down the inside of the entry of that chicane. And right now, this is side by side down the final corner, and an incident. This is unfortunate for both cars as they come together as they took the entry of the final corner. This has resulted in them finding themselves in the wall, and they both have lost their positions.
Absolutely, and that's going to be a real downer for Federico Teixeira, who was pushing very hard to try and climb his way up through the leaderboard, but unfortunately just got caught up in that incident, and that's going to really affect his chances in the race. Meanwhile, Fred Ting is pushing very hard indeed with some of the cars around him. He is in that beautiful black and orange Corvette, getting very close to Lachlan Crowe up ahead, and Mark Lange is also getting very close to the back of Fred Ting. So this might be an absolutely fantastic midfield battle starting up, and it looks like these guys are also going to get into the main sort of slipstreaming zone of the track, so this could be very interesting indeed come the end of the straight.
We're now with Lachlan Crowe as he sits on the slipstream with Aguri Young in front of him. So right now this is the gap between them sits at 1/10 of a second. So this is him perhaps going to think of a move along the outside. So they're now going side by side down into the braking zone of this chicane, but it would appear that the Porsche of Aguri Young has managed to edge out Lachlan Crowe. So it's Lachlan going to go for another commit down the final corner as they go side by side down this area. This is them going. Aguri slips back into the rear end of back into the slipstream, and right now they've switched positions successfully. So we're now riding on the rear roof camera of Lachlan Crowe, and we can just see how much ground he's been able to create for himself. And he makes a mistake as he goes around the first corner, and he has to take the escape route.
Absolutely, that's an absolutely unfortunate maneuver there from Lachlan. He definitely got a fantastic run through that final corner there, but just goes to show the S's are so hard to get right. If you miss your marks at the start of the S's, very often you can find yourself completely out of whack by the time you get to the end of them. And it really goes to show that what this track rewards more than anything else is precision. But right now, Timothy Jackson is going to try and use every single ounce of precision he has to try and make that overtaking maneuver work. He nicely gets that slipstream around Cho Fun Pang and into the braking zone there. Some beautiful moves there by Timothy to get himself up into 11th place. There's battles beginning to develop all throughout the leaderboard there. So very, very exciting stuff indeed.
This is Fred Ting. He's with nicely presented yellow, orange Corvette. In fact, I think he's managed to load a custom paint scheme. Now it's his turn to go behind the slipstream of Aguri Young, and we'll see if he's able to find an insertion point to make a position gain on Young. So as he takes the S's as do the cars around him, he's going to find. You can see that at this point it's all about trying to find the path of least resistance down the S's. And right now he's gotten a little bit of a better exit than Young has, and he's got a little bit more of an acceleration of the corner. So now they're going to go braking into the right hand. Oh, and someone's piled up, and this is yet another incident that has kind of led to more drivers losing positions.
Absolutely, it'll be interesting to see what happened there, but it looks like a very typical, and the yellow flag has indeed come out. So perhaps the race director has decided that there were too many cars piled up at the top half of the circuit there through 7 and 8, if I'm not mistaken. The banked corner at the top of the circuit there. So now we're going to go into a caution period. So we might see another appearance by the iRacing Porsche and a bit of a calming down of the field. But this brings up some absolutely interesting stuff there. Now we're going to watch the replay, and you can see the cars coming into the braking zone here. Lachlan manages to get really close into there, but unfortunately there was a car that was already spun. And unfortunately that's caused that chain reaction. So through no fault of his own, Lachlan has got the car very sideways, trying to avoid that incident. Didn't quite manage to avoid the crash, and unfortunately that led to quite a bit of a ping pong effect, or pinball effect rather.
Yeah, so it was partially due to the incident around the two right-handers right before the backstretch. And right now, what this means is that it offers the drivers the opportunity to kind of catch up, especially the cars which are lapped behind. It offers them the opportunity to catch up with the rest of the field again. And also for drivers who may have damages, they can use their one free repair to kind of quick fix their car and get a fresh car and go back racing once again. So this procession will take a couple of minutes, so it does consist of this pace car outlap, or safety car outlap rather. So after this, drivers may have the option to go into the pits, and after that, it will be perhaps a 1 to green, then followed by a green flag. So it's probably going to take 5 to 10 minutes.
Absolutely, and for Pariwat Chukan, who managed to get a 5-second lead the last time I checked before the yellow flag, that's really put quite a lot of pressure on himself, because now he's got Kelvinder Singh right up behind him. Kevin Huang also has caught up, and Saiful Arifin alongside Ilham Halabi. So the top 5 there has really closed up to Pariwat Chukan. He probably is one of the drivers that is perhaps ruining the fact that the safety car has come out. He's going to have quite the work to try and get a good start when it comes to that green flag. And now just a quick overview of the top 10 as of lap 8. 10 minutes have passed, almost 11 minutes have passed in the race. And your race leader is Pariwat Chukan in the BMW M8 GTE, followed by the similar model of Kelvinder Singh in second place. Kevin Huang drives the Ford GTE car in third position, followed by Saiful Arifin in the BMW, Ilham Halabi in the Ferrari 488, with Simon Sanchez in 6th place. Ryan Lam is the first of the Corvettes in 7th place, and Daniel Leet, the quickest of the Porsches so far, in 8th. Mitchell Hui in 9th, and Dominic Tan is in 10th place.
So of course, a slight reshuffle of the race lead. Kevin Huang has been pushed to third position. Of course, he was hovering between the first and third positions, switching positions with the cars up front. Kelvin Singh has made his way all the way up, and Saifullah Arifin has retained his position. Of course, your race leader at this point is Pariwat Chukan. So, what this means is that there's going to be an additional green flag moment similar to the race start. So, it is also, kind of another opportunity for the drivers to kind of have another go at a race start style of a position gain. And, you can just see that it is Kelvinder weaving around trying to get some temperature into the brakes and the tires, because with some of these cars, you do need to get the wheel temperatures up, the tire temperatures up for the brakes to be even more effective.
Absolutely, the trick is to get the brakes warm, to get the wheels warm, to get the tires warm, and then you've got to do a little bit of movement in the tires to try and work the tires, as they call it, to get the surface temperature up. And once everything is nice and warm, you'll be able to get into the first corner with as much grip as possible. But with these cars, of course, they're designed for endurance racing. The tyre compounds are also designed for endurance racing as well. And you'll definitely see that the cars are going to be a little bit slippery on the first couple of laps. The driver's going to find it a little bit tricky to keep their cars under control. So getting the temperature up is absolutely crucial, especially in these modern GTE cars.
So this is going to be the final safety car lap. What's going to happen at the end of this lap is that the safety car will make its way back into the pits, and it will be green flag from that point on. So we are at the 13-minute mark. We could expect a green flag. We would expect a green flag to take place at around the 15th and 16th minute mark. So that is where it will. That's where all the fast racing will come back again. That's when the green flag moment will come back again. Later on when the race resumes. So right now, drivers are just taking it slow once again. And I think another thing that safety car lap allows for is that it will allow drivers to kind of recalibrate and have a better feel of the track as they're able to kind of take it slowly and re-identify some of the areas.
Indeed, they'll be able to sort of think their way through, because the first lap again is going to be critical. They're going to have to brake just that little fraction earlier than they normally would. They're going to have to deal with quite a lot more traffic than in normal racing conditions as well. So it's a great time to just try and relax and make sure you're in the right mindset to take that restart, which is very hard, especially in quite a noisy environment, as a lot of these guys will be with their headphones on, the cars rattling away, trying to talk to their teammates if they have them in the race, try and figure out the position and figure out what's going to happen at the start of the race, because there's a lot of tactics that could happen here. Pariwat could try and hold the field back. He can try and go as early as possible. He can try and get the other drivers to double, basically second guess themselves. It's going to be very, very difficult indeed to try and deal. And of course, Pariwat had a nice lead coming into the safety car period, but he's got Kelvinder Singh there, who's raring to try and go and make an overtaking maneuver work, and Kevin Huang is right there with him as well. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on the entire driver.
So it's going to be green flag in a moment's time as the field goes under the command of Pariwat Chukan, and he decides to gun his car. He goes full throttle once again, and he leads Kelvinder Singh and Kevin Huang as well as Ilham Halabi to start yet another lap around Road Atlanta. So this is probably going to be some more overtaking action that's going to take place. We're just having a look at Kelvinder Singh. He's going to go along the inside of Pariwat Chukan as they now go side by side into the first corner, and gutsy move, and he makes a little bit of a mistake. Kelvinder goes to the escape route around the middle of the chicane, and we do see some of the other cars making their way around the S's as well. So you see, the thing with Road Atlanta is that it is quite a narrow track, and the corners are quite twisty, so it's not exactly the best track in order to where you can squeeze your car too wide. So yeah, it would appear that Kelvinder Singh has lost a couple more positions. He's now down to third, and he's just sat in front of Ilham Halabi, and this is now quite a packed up train of cars at this point. So Chukan in his BMW leads the rest of this field, and he's formed a little bit of a breakaway of 1.58 seconds.
Indeed he has, and Pariwat did a fantastic job off the lead of the race there. and really pushing the car very, very hard indeed in order to try and get that gap. Kalvinder Singh also had a fantastic start coming in through the first corner, but unfortunately made that mistake over the S's there. It looked to be like he elected to try and give that position back as a gesture of sportsmanship to Pariwat, because it could be construed as an advantage going off the road there, although having done so in the sims several times in the past, I can tell you that it is very, very scary to go through there, whether you mean it or not. But in any case, Pariwat has managed to get himself not a brilliant lead, but definitely a useful enough gap to Kevin Huang. But Kalvinder Singh is back into the swing of things, and he's putting a lot of pressure on Kevin, and Ilham Hlabi is also right there should anything go wrong. Ryan Lam right now battling with Simon Sanchez.
So this is a battle for P6, but of course this battle isn't exactly isolated. It is kind of connected to the cars in front. So, you know, we have some other remarks by drivers across the field as we monitor some of the radio chats that is going around. And I can see that Dominic Tan has lost a couple of positions. It could be due to perhaps something that might have happened at his side. So have a look at the replay. And this is Dominic Tan. He's come under contact with what would probably be another Ferrari, and you know, that has kind of sent him out out into the runoff of the second right-hander, and that kind of led to him losing many more positions. So we're back with Ryan Lam on live pictures. Now he still sits behind Simon Sanchez, and he's trying to perhaps gain as much ground as he can, riding over the curbs. And you know, the thing with GT cars on this track is that, you know, as tricky as this track is, with GT cars you can afford to eat the curbs as much as you like.
Absolutely, the curbs here perhaps a little bit too hard on things like Indy cars and open wheel cars in general, but these GT cars tend to love this sort of slightly rough treatment. They're almost like touring cars in that sense, that they can really attack the curbs. And you can see these guys are really pushing very hard indeed. Kalvinder Singh is now battling with Kevin Huang and really putting the blinders on Kevin there. Kalvinder really pushing him very hard indeed. Kevin having to defend on the top corners. Now coming down the back straight here, it looks like it's going to be an opportunity for a slipstream. They're going to go side by side, coming down into the chicane. It's going to be an outbraking maneuver. They're going to go 3 wide almost, coming into that corner there, and it looks like Kalvinder Singh manages to keep the car on the inside, but Kevin Huang might still have a chance there. He had slightly better traction coming out of the corner there, but it looks like Kalvinder Singh managed to hold on to that second place just by the skin of his teeth. Ladies and gentlemen, this is fantastic GT racing, and it's not over yet. Kalvinder Singh going up through the hill there, going to go into the S's. You can see Kevin Huang, and it looks like Kevin's car is just a little bit more agile through the S's here, but Kalvinder managing to get the power down just perhaps a little bit better than Kevin Huang, but for sure it's going to be a very close matchup between two very equal drivers in two very equal yet different machinery. And Ilham Hlabi, of course, is waiting and hoping and trying to put some pressure on these two drivers in order to try and make an overtaking maneuver of himself work.
So of course, I am also reviewing some of the action that's taking place across the field. So there are quite a lot of battles going on, a bit of tussling here and there. Of course, right now we are still focused on the battle for the lead. So Chukan still has a commanding lead. He's made a gap of, he's got an advantage, a breakaway of 2.6 seconds, and Kalvinder Singh has a time interval with Kevin Huang of 0.6 of a second. So, you know, right now it is quite a close battle. We're down with Dominic Tan at the other side of the grid. He's fighting at a 19th position. He's coming under a bit of pressure from Chok Fan as well as Jaswi Jonas, who is behind him.
Absolutely, you can see that. And there's two cars that had to stop on the exit of the corner there. That's going to really throw a spanner in the works for Dominic Tan. He manages to keep his position, and so does Chofan Pan there, but Jaswi Jonas and Lloyd Lachlan definitely had a really worrying moment there coming through the final part of the corner there, but it looks like everyone has managed to get through quite easily. But Chofan Pan looks like he has a little bit of damage on the front of his car. That's going to affect the aerodynamics. These cars do generate quite a bit of aero grip, but it looks like it's not affecting him too much, as he's able to keep within arm's reach of Dominic Tan. So that could be an interesting little battle that might develop further throughout the course of the race. 20 minutes have passed, 21 minutes have passed, and your leaders are still Parawat Chukan, followed by Kelvinder Singh, Kevin Huang, Ilham Hlabi, Saiful Arifin, Simon Sanchez, Ryan Lam, Jaswin Jali, Timothy Jackson, and Fred Ting in 10th place. Now we ride on board with Ilham Hlabi as he tries to chase down Kevin Huang.
So fantastic fight going on towards the pointy end of the grid. We have we have a lot of good action taking place at this point. So the gap between Ilham and Kevin sit at 5 to 9 tenths of a second, and rather 5 tenths of a second. So at this point it is kind of they're all within attacking distance. So Ilham has managed to close that up to 2 tenths, and he's making great gains with Kevin. Now, I think it's quite unusual to see a Ford GT fighting, especially at this part of the grid. In order to get the most out of this Ford GT, you have to really understand this car inside and out. And it's not exactly, it's one of the more difficult cars to push, in fact, as compared to some of the other easier GTE cars.
Yes, indeed. Perhaps that might be a result of the fact that Ford really developed that car as a prototype almost right from the start. But Ilham Hlabi looks like he managed to make quite an easy maneuver coming into the chicane there. It looks like that Ferrari cuts through the air just a little bit better and is able to get a little bit more of a slipstream effect coming into that chicane area there. So it looks like Kevin Huang and Ilham Hlabi might be in a position where they're going to change positions quite often throughout the course of the race there. But Ilham Hlabi manages to taste that bottom step of the podium just for a little bit. He's going to have to work very hard indeed, however, to try and keep Kevin Huang from that third position. Absolutely fantastic stuff watching those cars descend the hill. It's almost like the famous Eau Rouge but in reverse, and you have to brake for it. Fantastic stuff there. It looks like Saiful Arifin managed to really close the gap up on Kevin there. Going through the S's and through the top 2 corners here. Again, got to be really careful. It's a lot slower than you think through this corner here. And it's all about the drive out the exit. And it looks like Kevin has a lot of traction and a lot of drive coming up onto the back straight. So perhaps this is where we're going to see this back and forth battle developing, with some of the cars, some of the car layouts better on one part of the track and some of the car layouts better on another part of the track. Timothy Jackson now battling with a fellow Corvette.
This is going to be an exciting battle. We have one of the fastest sim racing drivers in Australia, and he's giving the guys here in Asia a run for their money. So right now, this is Jackson battling with Jali, and this is going to be a top speed run, a high speed run down the downhill right-hander, and we'll see if he's able to make inroads against Jali and Lam. Both fast drivers in their respective regions. So of course, we all know that Ryan Lam is immortalized in race 07, and we know that Jaswin Jali is among the fastest drivers in Malaysia in the iRacing scene, and Timothy Jackson, part of Evolution Racing team, of course one of the fastest teams in sim racing teams in Australia. And they're now taking the S's, descending the S's, and Jackson has gone for a slightly wider exit, making good use of that curb as he perhaps goes for a move. He's going to perhaps think of a move over the next coming moments.
Absolutely, and you can see that Timothy really does know how to put pressure on the 2 cars up ahead. But as you were saying, Ryan Lam, Jaswin Jali and Timothy Jackson, this is almost a battle of the regions. And Timothy Jackson is in that Porsche, but Ryan Lam and Jaswin Jali are also having a fantastic intra-Corvette battle up ahead here. So this is going to be a very interesting little thing. But you can see that the Porsche isn't quite as strong on the back straight, perhaps not quite as aerodynamically efficient as the slightly newer shape Corvettes, but through the twisty sections and through the S's, it looks like Timothy is able to really get onto the back of JJ here. And Ryan Lam definitely not running away from these 2 by any stretch of the imagination. So this is going to be a very interesting battle. It's going to go right throughout the race.
Yeah, many great battling going on throughout all of the grid, and of course it's all all due to the fantastic drivers that make up this SimRacers Asia participation. And we're very grateful to everyone who's joined us in this race. This is Kelvin Singh. He's down in second. He's up to second, or maybe I think he had been leading at some point. So he's managed to close the gap with Chukan. And we're going to see how well these drivers shake it out with each other. Ilham Halabi is coming in close as well, and so is Kevin Huang. And very much Saiful Arifin and Arjun as well in sixth. I do realize that's him in sixth. Sorry, I did kind of mistake the name a little bit there on my end. And they're now thundering down this right-hander. So we did see a couple of incidents take place a couple of laps ago throughout the race. A few incidents taking place, and fortunately, it's not the case with this second half of the race. I hope I don't jinx it, but right now with the cars kind of more spread out, it does probably mean that the drivers will be able to have a little bit more wiggle room for themselves.
Indeed, but it looks like Kelvin Singh has managed to get has done a really nice job there of trying to catch up with Chukan. And it looks like Kelvin Singh might try to atone for his mistakes at the restart there and try and make that overtaking maneuver on Pariwat work. Now we're coming up to the back stretch here. This could be where the lead changes again. Of course, Ilham Labi is very close behind, and you can't discount Kevin Huang in this battle as well. So it looks like Kelvin Singh is not quite close enough to try and do anything drastic on Pariwat Chukan, but I predict within the next lap or so we might see a change for the lead. Coming into the braking zone here, it's going to be about who can do the best lap time, who can do the best last sector of the track. Both men in equal cars, both in BMW M8 GTEs, so it really is a case of driver versus driver, and a fantastic driver battle is shaping up here. Rejoin Timothy Jackson in his attempts to try and get past Jaswin Jali, and just goes to show how strong each individual region, as you were saying, Wehan, Timothy Jackson from Australia, Jaswin Jali from Malaysia, and Ryan Lam as well, just further up ahead. The SRE, SRA and the Aussies, both very, very equal in, or three of them rather, very, very equal indeed in terms of lap time and lap pace. And you can definitely see that these guys are not going to get past each other very easily indeed. But it looks like Timothy Jackson, again, he can get close through the S's, but perhaps not quite close enough to try and gain advantage via slipstream down the back straight here. But he is a little bit closer than when we last saw him, and this could be a chance for a definite closing of the gap, if not perhaps a look into the chicane. He decides not to go for it just quite yet, but Timothy Jackson gets just that little bit closer to Jaswin Jali.
So in fact, we do kind of see a very, very balanced share of the use of cars, with the exception of Ford GT, of course. The cars of the Corvette, the Ferrari 488, the BMW M8, and Porsche 911. These are all cars that are kind of evenly spread throughout, of course, a little bit more BMW M8s than the rest of the cars. So I think it does go to show that with the variety of GTE cars that are available to everyone, it kind of offers drivers the different options that kind of suit their taste. Some cars might suit certain tracks better than the others. And we're now with Saiful Arifin, who's giving Kevin Huang quite a hard time, in fact. They are 0.3 of a second apart, and it is slipstream time right now, as Saiful is probably going to think of something as he comes along this backstretch. So he is gaining on Kevin. You can see that with this Ford GT, you can actually go very late on the brakes with these Ford GT. So exactly that. You can see that that's where the advantage is. A bit of mistake by the Corvette in front, and that is someone who's gone out wide. Now, of course, he's very fortunately hasn't been tangled with any of the cars.
You can see the next challenge for Pariwat Chukan in his quest to try and win the race. We're now starting to get into lap traffic, and we've actually gone into lap traffic quite late in the race, which just goes to show how fast the entire field is, how good the quality of the field is, and that drivers are only starting to drop laps fairly late on in the game. 30 minutes have passed, 44 minutes to go, and it looks like Pariwat there has gone wide out of the S's, and that gives an opportunity for Kelvinder Singh to try and outbrake them going into the top corner. And Pariwat is still side by side for both drivers, and Pariwat just about manages to keep the car on the apex of the corner there. Kelvinder Singh very, very close to getting the lead there, but now he's under attack from Ilham Halabi. This is absolutely sensational racing going down the back straight there, and it looks like Kelvinder Singh was going to try and go for the lead, but it looks like he might lose second place to Ilham Halabi, who manages to make good use of that mistake there. But Kelvin is not going to give up that easy. He's trying to do as much as he can. They're still side by side, and as they go underneath the Suzuki bridge and into the final corner there, Kelvinder Singh finally manages to secure that second place. So that was for almost challenging, almost gaining the lead, to almost losing second place all in one lap. This is sensational racing, ladies and gentlemen.
And would look like Kevin Huang has something up his sleeves as well. He's currently in fourth, and he's probably going to think of something that's going to take place. So right now, this is a four-way battle for the lead, as well as the positions that follow it very, very closely. And I think we've got quite a safe breakaway of the top 5 drivers. Of course, that's rounded out by SRA. I think this is the top 5 drivers who form a 4-second breakaway from the rest of the grid. So you can see that competition is very much intense at this point. And Pariwat, the kind of the average gap between the top 3 drivers would sit at 4/10, exactly 0.47 seconds. So, very close together they are indeed. And I think this track just supports such close racing with these different sections, especially with this backstretch, which allows them for some slipstreaming.
Indeed, a real gem out there in the Georgia countryside, right there in the southeast. And it looks like Kelvinder Singh is going to go side by side. He's going to try and go again. A fantastic overtaking maneuver, pushing Pariwat as hard as possible. And it looks like Kelvinder Singh has managed to get into the lead. So that's a fantastic development in the race. Kelvinder Singh has been putting a lot of pressure on the entire driver there of Pariwat, and he's managed to get himself into the lead. And it looks like this time around he's managed to keep that lead over the S's and really start to pull away. So it looks like Kelvin had quite a lot of performance in that BMW M8. Meanwhile, Pariwat looks like he may be struggling with the tyre wear just a little bit. He's slowly starting to get into the clutches of Ilham Halabi and Kelvin Huang. And Saiful Arifin is also joining up the back of this battle. It's starting to be a battle for second place rather than the battle of first place, where Pariwat tried to recover the car just a little bit there. It could be that he may have overheated the tyres ever so slightly, and he's having to try and back off the pace just to try and get the tyres back. But meanwhile, Ilham Halabi will be reeling him in. It looks like he might be able to get into an overtaking position here. But Ilham Halabi, of course, he is a driver who loves to put a little bit of intimidation into his driving tactics. He'll follow a driver as hard and put as much pressure on the back as possible. Daniel Leet, meanwhile, we're looking at a replay of him going through the S's there, and it looks like he may have had a little bit of a mistake there, and unfortunately just about misses his mark.
So we are back with Pariwat. It would appear that Kelvinder Singh has taken the race lead from the Thai driver. So exceptional battling by these two drivers all night long. This is just going to continue taking place all throughout the night. So I think Kelvinder Singh has in fact broken quite far ahead of Pariwat. This is in fact a 1.5 second gain that he's managed to find himself. And Pariwat now finds himself having to defend his second position from Ilham Halabi, who very much would probably like a slice of this pie as well. But as far as Kelvinder is concerned, he's trying to gain as much gap as he can, although it's now the backstretch, and it means that the drivers behind can gain up to him. So right now, he's just trying to hold on to his position as much as possible. But he is getting a little bit comfortable in doing so as he comes around the final chicane.
Indeed, it does seem that Kelvinder Singh has been playing that late game. Of course, this is a long enough race, like I said at the top of the broadcast, to... Ooh, that's a big impact there. That looked like Ryan Lum and Timothy Jackson coming into the chicane. We're just going to have a quick look at that in the replay. Coming into the braking zone. and it seems like the slightest of touches there, Ryan Lam's car over-rotates slightly, and that's a huge impact, sending poor old Ryan Lam off into the gravel trap. Very, very weird accident there. Perhaps iRacing physics taking over?
Yeah, that was an unfortunate contact between the both drivers. Of course, when you enter the corner side by side, sometimes it's it's difficult to see how close your driver beside you is in relative to where your car is. So sometimes it gets a little bit hard to judge that. And unfortunately, when your collision is that hard, right, you do kind of bounce off that much. Could be down to iRacing physics, but I think iRacing is it is kind of very much representative of what might happen in real life.
Absolutely, and it just goes to show an innocuous little contact can lead to big consequences. It sort of reminded me actually of the BTCC series finale back in 1994 when Will Hoy ended up on his roof on the final lap. Very interesting stuff indeed, but it looks like Kelvinder Singh has managed to pull quite a bit of a gap, 1.2 seconds. He's still not having to relax quite yet, but Parawatchakan looks like he is backed off just ever so slightly as they begin to go through traffic. Again, this is going to be one of those situations where Kelvinder Singh has to get through the traffic as cleanly as possible and hope that the guys further behind him have a bit of an issue, but Parawatchakan is in second place, Ilham Hlabi is in third, followed by Kevin Huang, and it looks like things are beginning to settle down ever so slightly at this part of the race. So at lap 27 of the race, Kelvinder Singh leads the race, followed by Parawatchakan, Ilham Hlabi, Kevin Huang, Saifur Arifin with Simon Sanchez 4.4 seconds behind, followed by Timothy Jackson, Jasri Jali, Fred Ting and Aguri Yong, your top 10 for this race.
We are coming to the final moments of this race. Of course, for these GTE cars, no pit stops required. They do not have to go in for the fuel stop. Of course, if you do race the Radical here, you do have to take the fuel stop with that car. Right now, this is Saifur Arifin. He's probably, he began from 4th position. He's now down 1 place down into 5th, and he's sitting behind Kevin Huang, trying to perhaps find a bit of a slipstream as much as possible if he can find one as he takes this first corner. You can just see, I think right now I'm just noticing the weather on the iRacing sim right now is very much overcast, and it's got a very nice sunset effect on the track, and it just makes everything look really nice.
The memories come flooding back for me for the Petit Le Mans races, one of my favourite races to watch as a kid, back in the days when Audi and Porsche were battling for the ALMS crown, and also all the GT teams that were battling just to get that invite that was given to all the top 3 teams to go to the 24 hours of Le Mans. And some say the Petit Le Mans race was, if anything, even more exciting. 10 hours of absolutely flat out running into the night there, and very evocative scenes with these cars coming through there. But it looks like Saifur Arifin might be trying something out as well, but it looks like a few of the drivers having to pit. Could this be a fuel issue? Looks like Alex Ching there also having a bit of a mistake coming out of the first corner there. Looks like he is also having a little bit of trouble trying to keep that car up to race pace, and he's going to be a little bit worried to try and get that car to the end of the race. But so far right now, Kelvinder Singh is still in the lead, followed by Parawatchakan and Ilham Hlabi.
So just observing for some additional battles that are taking place around the field, and it would appear that the pit stops that the drivers have made, it could be down to perhaps some damage that they had sustained at various moments in this race. So we're now with Kevin Huang once again. He's fending off a P4 from Saifur Arifin. I just kind of like the additional lighting effects on the Ford GT. It does kind of add an additional point of interest for a car that already looks like it came from another planet. Yeah, and if you do kind of look at the Ford GT from the rear end, it does remind me of those pigs in Angry Birds.
From this view, it kind of reminds me of the cars of Rocket League. It is an absolutely fantastic car to watch, and great idea from the Ford and the Ganassi boys. I believe it was Chip Ganassi's idea to have the buttresses, the flying buttress design lit up at night, and it really does make the forge stand out, and fantastic visual effect as we go into the darkness here. Very evocative scenes here at Road Atlanta. It's been a part of the endurance racing circuit since 1978. Absolutely fantastic stuff to watch these cars run around. In NASCAR country, believe it or not, the majority of the racetracks that surround Road Atlanta are in fact ovals, and most of them are NASCAR ovals. So it's in fact very surprising that this road course of all things, and not one that's had much stock car racing, has really flourished here in the southeast of America.
And very much so, this is also kind of where IMSA is based. In fact, this is Georgia, and where, you know, I think I would find that, you know, perhaps NASCAR would have an even stronger following in the states of Carolina, whereas over here it's where I would think, you know, there is still a presence of sports car racing as it's known in the US. I think, you know, very much the history of Road Atlanta, I think it's, you know, I might have seen it somewhere. It was, you know, very much a couple of racing enthusiasts, you know, they bought this land, and you know, they kind of made use of the terrain and paved quite a nice racetrack, and a flowing racetrack, you know, something that's not technical but very challenging. And you know, they've kind of shaped Road Atlanta to be what it's like.
Indeed. The two enthusiasts, I forget the names, but basically they had the same sort of dream that I don't know if you guys are a fan of the YouTuber Cletus McFarland. They just really wanted a very nice racetrack. There wasn't any sort of racetracks down in the south of the US that's anything like this in terms of elevation gains and that sort of European feel that Road Atlanta brings to the equation. So they decided to build one, and they've managed to make the dream work. And now, as Wayhan has said, they're headquarters of IMSA, and fantastic place. You can see the darkness finally descending there. An absolutely evocative scene going through the chicanes there. You can really feel that endurance spirit is alive and well here at the absolutely fantastic Road Atlanta circuit.
Because this is where all the headlights come into play, as we see more moving lights instead of moving objects at this point. But of course, you know, very much I think it would have been time for these drivers to experience racing under the stars. Of course, no floodlights that we would expect from Formula One street circuits. This is pure racing in the dark, just as you would at Spa, just as you would at Le Mans, and pretty much also even Sebring and many other endurance racing venues where, you know, it's all about the car and the track and nothing else.
Yes, and I do notice later on in the season we will in fact be going to Le Mans, so that's going to be very exciting to see this effect come into full play. Really pretty sights, and I can just imagine the cars going through Tête Rouge and onto the Mulsanne Straight with the lights blazing a path through the night. You can see there, Ilham Hlabi is currently the closest challenger to the leading two cars there right now. Meanwhile, Timothy Jackson is trying to catch up with Simon Sanchez, and the whole field streaming through. We've got one more lap roughly to go. We're just in the dying seconds of the race time-wise, but I do see the leaders go through the start-finish line, so it looks like it's going to be a white flag lap this time around. And Kelvin De Singh, yes, he's in the S's, and he's really going to have to concentrate as much as possible. I can tell you, with this sort of endurance racing effects, he must be listening to every single small noise that car is making, hoping it's going to last, hoping it's going to take him to the finish of the race, and to what is going to be an absolutely fantastic win for Kelvin De Singh.
So as you ride with him as he takes the final half a lap around this track, the battle's not over yet. Pariwat Shukan and Ilham Halabi are still, you know, kind of thinking of making moves at this point, although the gap has kind of increased. So as they go thundering down the backstretch for one last time under the stars, you know, this is going to perhaps come to a spectacular end, as you know, these drivers take it down this hard braking. So braking for the final chicane for the final time, You can just see the moving lights in the racetrack. And this is Kelvin Singh. He's going to come around the final corner, the downhill corner. He gets the apex right, gets the exit curb right, and he wins round 1 of the SimRacers Asia Radical GTE series here at Road Atlanta. And you can see the flashing lights come into full effect. Kind of sets the whole racetrack to a disco. Chukan comes home in 2nd, Ilham Halabi 3rd, and Kevin Huang comes home in 4th. Saiful Arifin will come home in 5th, and so will Simon Sanchez in 6th. Rest of the drivers as well. But this is another battle that's taking place between Agri Young and Cassidy's Tumkunanon. This is quite exciting as well, as we do see them battling it out. There are some cars in front as well that are making their way towards the finish line. Of course, on my screen it is Kevin Huang flashing his lights. So right now, this is Tumkunanon. Is she going to be able to find a way around Agri Young? Does she do it? It is going to be very close, but Agri Young edges her out to finish 10th and Tumkunanon in 11th.
Absolutely fantastic racing all the way up to the end under the stars. That's fantastic racing, and you really do have quite a lot of satisfaction for winning that battle, I am sure. Atsushi Tanaka is in 12th place, Lachlan Crow in 13th, and Mark Land is one of the last few cars out there. He crosses the line in 14th position, with Lloyd Lachlan in 15th, Dominic Tan in 16th, and Jasri Junos in 17th place. So an absolutely spectacular race this time around here. And now just a quick look at the results there. Kelvinder Singh has managed to take a fantastic win here at Road Atlanta for the SRA GTE-Radical series, and he's going to take that championship lead and that momentum coming into the next few rounds. Parawat Chukan won't be too dissatisfied, I believe, with second place. He will still be in the hunt for the championship title. Ilham Halabi is in 3rd, surfing off of his success in the AAMC championship earlier in the season, and of course very, very quick drive in the SRA series as well. Kevin Huang is in 4th place for both Saiful Arifin, Simon Sanchez, Timothy Jackson, Jasrin Jali, and Fred Tin.
We've got the other drivers: Agri Young, Cassidy's Tumkunanon, Asushi Kanata, Lachlan Crow, Mark Lang, Lloyd Lachlan, Dominic Tan, Jasri Junos, Alex Chuk, Ryan Lam, and Pang Chok Fan round up your top 20. We've also got some of the other drivers who have unfortunately faced issues throughout the race, and they had to retire earlier on. These are Michelle Wee, Daniel Leet, Surin Salvaraju, Stefan Yever, Stephen Bocade, Federico Teixeira, Paul Rogers, UNC Lin, Arsif Razali, as well as these are the drivers who have connected. These round up your participants of round 1 of the SimRacers Asia GT Radical series here at Road Atlanta. Beautiful Road Atlanta. I've never seen this, in fact, at night, and my sim screen is pitch black now. I cannot see anything.
Luckily on the broadcast we have the cars coming back into the pits, and it is an absolutely fantastic sight indeed. As the lights go out on the leader's car, Kelvinder Singh, it has been an absolutely fantastic first race to the SRA series this fall. You can see there as the cars, it's almost a forlorn scene when the track goes dark here, and it's going to be an absolutely fantastic series. And now we're just going to have a quick look at the calendar. We've just been at Road Atlanta, where Kelvinder Singh has won the race. We're going to go now to the Circuit of the Americas down in Texas, the Formula One venue, for round 2, followed by Charlotte Roval. That's going to be an exciting race under the lights there, I'm sure, on the 17th, followed by Interlagos, Laguna Seca. Montreal is a new one for us here at Adrenaline Impact. That's going to be an exciting one as well to watch, alongside Le Mans, which is going to be fantastic for these GTE cars. Really, these cars are coming home to Le Mans, and Indianapolis Grand Prix on the 21st of November. Select rounds will be live on Adrenaline Impact. Do stay tuned for the times and the dates. But what do you think of the calendar, Wehan?
Well, it follows the officials. That's what I know. But yeah, I think we've got an excellent combination of tracks that fast tracks, classic endurance tracks like Le Mans, as well as places like Interlagos and Circuit of the Americas, modern tracks. You throw in things like Montreal, where you would usually race either tin top cars or Formula cars or even NASCARs, and you're now bringing GTE cars there. With the tall curbs, you're gonna kind of have. We'll kind of see how drivers deal with such a challenge. The curbs there are monstrous. It can send you off rolling into the walls. You've got Indianapolis GP. That's not a common track that we race on, but an excellent place for high-speed racing. You've got a nice banked back main stretch there. Charlotte Roval. The people who watch NASCAR, you kind of know that track for what it is. It's not called All Star for no reason. You've got beautiful curbs and very, very nice corners around, although it is quite a tricky track to master. With the MX-5s there, it's excellent. With the GTE cars, we'll see for ourselves what kind of results we'll get. So right now, we do have a couple of people in the interview rooms. In the waiting room is Dominic Tan as well as Mark Lang. We'll still probably hold out for a couple more drivers, but we'll perhaps begin with speaking to Dominic and have an understanding of how the race went from his perspective. So we're now with Dominic Tan. First of all, thanks for racing with us. Congratulations on your race result. You came home in 16. Look, can you tell us more about how the race took place? I understand that in the middle of the race, we did deploy a yellow flag. That's because we did observe that there were some incidents that took place to an extent where we didn't want any more incidents to take place, so we decided to just call the yellow flag and reset it from there. So, look, can you tell us more about the race from your perspective? Some of the battles that might have taken place, and how everything went.
I had a very good start. I think I started 17, and I think by the end of the fourth lap, probably I was P10, and I was P9 at the safety car, and it was quite good. And then after the safety car restart, I had a very bad start and lost 3 places until I got rear-ended by Surin, and then the race just went south from there.
That's very unfortunate indeed. But what do you think of the track going into the night? That must be quite challenging trying to adjust to the different lighting levels, especially on a track where you really don't have that many straights on the circuit.
Yeah, and I didn't know that the race would go on to night, and it was the first time driving in the night on iRacing, not just on Road Atlanta. So it was challenging, and I find the vision quite tough, especially going up the hill and going down. That was tough. That's my first time, and it's a good experience.
Absolutely. And how are you finding the good old BMW M8?
Unfortunately, that's the only GTE that I have, so I had to choose that. Yeah, but it's a very fun car to drive, and I love it. I love it.
Absolutely fantastic. Thanks for spending some time with us, Dominic.
All right.
What are your expectations for the rest of the season? Just before you go.
Oh, this is my first season with SRA on iRacing, and my expectation is just to absorb as much experience as I can, and hopefully do well the following season next year.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us.
All right. See you guys.
And now you can see that with Dominic Tan. It's interesting to see a first-timer's perspective of driving into the night on iRacing. Speaking from experience, what do you think of the conditions when you do drive into the night?
Well, I think night racing isn't exactly new in iRacing. If you do race ovals, in fact, almost all of the races are at night. But it's kind of a floodlit track, so it doesn't make too much of a difference. But what it means is that sometimes at night, right, your track temperatures do actually go very cold, and sometimes it's cold to the point where you also begin to lose grip. So it kind of misses the sweet spot. But with it racing on road, I don't recall racing on road without those street lights. So I think I think it's just something new for these drivers to experience. Speaking of experience, we do have Mark in the booth with us. Mark, thanks so much for joining us in the comms booth. Now, look, can you share with us how the race went from your perspective? Given that this is perhaps the first round to the Q4 season that we've all put up, And with some of the drivers who may be new and even some familiar faces that we've seen, drivers new and old that have kind of come to race with us tonight. I think we've seen for ourselves that the competition did kind of take its own turn at various points, but it all ended up with quite a good outcome.
Yeah, hi guys. Firstly, thank you so much for broadcasting. I think it was definitely an entertaining race, and I hope you guys were entertained as well. So, racing today was quite a lot of fun, especially with the safety car thrown in, because that was a second restart for all of us. Obviously, I knew that it would end in the dusk, and what will happen is most of our races will, is targeted for the last couple of laps to end up in the dusk slash the night. So definitely a great start to the season. A lot of familiar faces that we've seen before have been with us for the last few years, and a couple of new ones, which is great as well.
Absolutely, and I understand the Hong Kong and Macau Sim Racing Association is with us as well, and quite a few drivers from all over Asia have come in to compete in the event. How are you finding the sort of level of competitiveness from all the drivers throughout?
I think the good thing is that as you've seen, we've have traditionally had drivers from all over Asia, from Australia, the APAC region. Most of us are in ASEAN, and obviously you do occasionally see some guys from Korea and Japan join into race as well. But most of us are within the ASEAN region. I think it's great. I think the one of the things that we try to do on this particular platform is to try and showcase some of the talents that we have in Asia. I think in Asia we do have a lot of good drivers who can who can come onto this platform and through your broadcast actually be seen and show their skills to to the rest of the audience around Asia.
Absolutely. And do you have any advice for the next round at Circuit of the Americas for all the guys watching?
Practice.
Absolutely.
No, I think Circuit of Americas would be fun. I think it was a great start at Road Atlanta. Road Atlanta is always a great track to drive, whatever car you're driving. And Circuit of Americas is a very technical track, but at the same time, once you master it, once you get the flow to drive the track, it can actually be a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to racing the GT on Circuit of Americas on Kota, just because this particular car has a lot of grip. So versus the GT3 cars, you can really throw it into the corner and it will stick.
Absolutely. It's going to be an absolutely fantastic race. Circuit of the Americas never ceases to put on a great event. Just before we leave you to it, is there anybody you want to shout out on stream?
Well, the usual. Obviously, firstly, thank you guys. I'd like to thank our dear Chan Wei Han as well, who has stepped into the role of race director for this season. I've been doing it since 2011, so this will be, the start of perhaps my holiday, um, as I slowly transfer all the race direction, for the different series that we run to and decentralize it to other people. I like to thank all those guys who turned up, as well as anyone watching the stream.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot for your efforts in promoting the SRA racing and for helping out behind the scenes. I know you've helped out quite a bit as well. And yeah, thanks for having us along. It's been an absolute pleasure to broadcast the race. Absolutely exciting racing all up and down the field. And it's really something that really shows off the skills of the drivers to their max.
For sure. Thank you, guys. Cheers.
Absolutely. Cheers, mate. So yeah, that was absolutely interesting having a chat with Mark there, and it looks like it's going to shape up to be a very exciting season up ahead.
Yeah, most certainly. So I think we've got, first of all, we've got a roster of good tracks, and we've also got so many excellent drivers that kind of make up the unique style of competition that we have. So when you put all these good combinations together, and also GTE cars this season, perfect. Good. And when you have a good combination of all these things, you would probably be able to achieve competition that's probably going to be enjoyable for, most importantly, enjoyable for the people who are participating in the racing. So the car is nice to handle. You can push the car a lot this time. You've got Charlotte Roval. So what more can you ask for?
That is but I think like you were saying, this was the iRacing official series calendar, and props to the iRacing guys. This time they really have done quite a nice little calendar for themselves here.
Yeah, very much so. So we don't exactly have any more race interviews. Of course, to the guys who are racing, if over the next few broadcasts, we will still open up post race interviews. So if you're keen on that, you feel free to come on to the SimRacers Asia Discord. And also, I do understand that there is Adrenaline Impact is also going to put up a race quite soon to continue on from the past 2 seasons of the AIMC iRacing Malaysia Championship. I think we're all also looking forward to more of that.
Absolutely. Personally, I can't wait to see this. This has been an absolutely fantastic start to the SRA season, and overall throughout the course of the year, the explosion in popularity of sim racing has been absolutely phenomenal. And hopefully we'll be able to continue this momentum throughout the following few years. But it's been an absolutely fantastic community to be a part of. And we would like to just say, from Adrenaline Impact's point of view, a special thanks to all the guys who've put up with us turning up, and hope you guys have enjoyed the broadcast. But for now, it's a special thanks from the Macau-China SimRacing Association, SimRacers Asia, the SimRacing Association of Singapore, and to my co-commentator Chan Wei Hen. Very special thanks. Glad you can join me in the broadcast booth this time around. And also a very special shout out to Khairul Alang in the director's seat. And now, as we see the sim racing enthusiast car head past of the winner, Kelvinder Singh, all that remains for me to say is yet again thank Khairul Alang, Chan Wei Hen, Max Palmer, and Dominic Tan and Mark Land for giving up some of their time to speak to us in the post-race session. And it'll be goodbye from us for now until the next round. So until then, do stay tuned to Adrenaline Impact for more dates on the SRA calendar, and we will see you in the next broadcast. Ta-ra!